A lot of people listening probably have just looked at the headline or just looked at the articles of what people are writing, or looked at X, or just looked at the very topical level of like, we had a bunch of tariffs on the whole world and it crashed my 401k, without thinking a little bit deeper. The tariffs in general, they will touch every industry, right? But what's our timeline for those tariffs? There's no doubt in anyone's mind. Obama advocated for them. Pelosi has advocated for them. A lot of Republicans have advocated for them. Schumer at one point. Both sides of the aisle understand tariffs work. They drive growth in the country that is implementing them. They drive income for that. But it has to be done over time, right? So most people have seen this of Apple flying plane loads of iPhones out. Have you seen that? So when the tariffs were announced, Apple went and loaded up, I think it was like 5 jumbo planes filled with iPhones and flew them to America, right? Because like they needed excess supplies to handle that, because they were about to get crushed in tariffs, which is what happens when you do things so abruptly. Yeah. And so like, that's great for Apple, who has $800 billion in cash, and they can go do that. But what about that guy that just started this shoe company and is doing like $2 million a year, and half of his stuff is made in China? He doesn't have the cash to do that. And then overnight, he gets slapped with a massive tariff. It's very, very difficult. And so things like tariffs, they take time before the positive outcome is reached.
Sure.
And doing it so abruptly can cause a lot of issues. I think Apple, right, they announced that they're going to start making a lot more stuff in India. And going back to Scott Bessent, it's working out exactly like he hoped, right? Okay. That's going to crush China if Apple moves out and these other big companies, and Nike moves out and these other companies move to a different country to make their goods cheaper, crushes China and all that. But things take time, and doing it so abruptly is not it.
So and I like the way you explain that all. That makes sense to me. And as you were going through it, and even, I was starting to be like, okay, like I get this. You're right. It's way too abrupt. There needs to be some subtlety to that, because I think coming into this pod, my angle was, we're just cutting off our nose to spite our face.
Sure.
Which, not going to work, or, just has a zero impact or zero, just race to the bottom kind of thing. So I think the focus on these micro problems without an understanding of the macro issues is where we see all this up and down. So, and you mentioned, what are you going to do as the common person or somebody with a business? I think if you do, like you said, if you have a business with, I'm selling shoes or anything that needs to be manufactured, it's a scary time.
Sure.
But there's certainly businesses you can get into that maybe you're not dependent on the stock market.
Yeah, there's ways to get around it. A lot of people I've talked to have businesses that make things overseas have moved contracts to a net 60 contract, right? To say, well, as long as the situation gets resolved in a certain amount of time, maybe there's some wiggle room there if I do it this way. Or others have started using bonded warehouses where they will go and ship their products to this warehouse in a non-tariff country, and the products only get hit with tariffs when they leave that warehouse, that specific warehouse. So it kind of buys you that time as well. And so there's people are adapting, and it shows the resilience of these small businesses and stuff. But at the end of the day, it still takes time, right? And whether you're a small business or whether you're Apple and you're moving stuff to India, it takes time. And so I think tariffs as a whole aren't necessarily the devil. They're not the end of the world, especially because almost every country in the world tariffs us on imports. So they're not the worst thing, and they do work, but you can't do it via tweet unless you just want to blanket get everybody to the negotiation table immediately. And so that's your way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a whole national security issue here too, which I've really, and I don't know how much tariffs impact the bottom line there. That could be a future episode, but reigning in China for sure, and them pillaging our, Kevin Leary, he was going through it the other day and talking about how, and you mentioned it, if the idea is just to crush China, let's do it, because they have been stealing our secrets, company secrets and all that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but I'm glad we covered this, because I think a A lot of people listening probably have just looked at the headlines or just looked at the articles of what people are writing or looked at X or just looked at the very topical level of like, we had a bunch of tariffs on the whole world and it crashed my 401k without thinking a little bit deeper. And then the others who are like, yeah, finally we're doing it. Well, there's a lot of repercussions, guys. Like maybe if we're going to do it, maybe we do it right. Maybe we do it a little bit prolonged as opposed to immediately. So yeah, I think it's good that we did this to kind of hopefully demystify tariffs a little bit.